Welcome to Starz Recapped, your one-stop destination for thrilling movie recaps, powerful stories, and unforgettable scenes. Sit back, relax, and let us break down the biggest films and hidden details, fast, clear, and entertaining. If you love movies, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Long ago, in the green realm of Arcania, humans and the wild lived side by side in perfect balance. That peace shattered when the ruthless warlord Anzus seized the throne. His rise marked the beginning of bloodshed, as fire and steel followed his armies wherever they marched. One fateful day, Anzus's forces stormed a quiet settlement deep in the forest. Among the chaos and slaughter, a young girl named Sonja survived, though nearly everyone she loved was lost to the flames. Years passed, and the frightened child grew into a hardened wanderer. Now an adult, Sonja roams the vast woods in search of any remaining members of her people. She carries a worn map, carefully marking every path she has already explored, refusing to give up hope. During her journey, she reaches a silent lake where a stone figure of the forest goddess stands watch. Sonja offers a quiet prayer, seeking strength and guidance, before stepping into the water to wash away her exhaustion. Suddenly, the calm is broken as graceful woodland creatures dash past the shore, fleeing for their lives. Mercenaries are close behind, sensing danger. Sonja quickly slips into hiding with her horse, blending into the shadows. They remain motionless, hearts pounding, until the hunters disappear into the depths of the forest and silence returns once more. Not long after, Sonja comes across the aftermath of the hunt. The graceful creatures she saw earlier now lie lifeless across the ground, their horns brutally torn away. The sight fills her with anger and dread. After hours of riding, she reaches the edge of a small kingdom engulfed in chaos. Flames rise, people scream, and soldiers swarm the streets. Sonja leaves her horse hidden among the trees and quietly slips closer, moving through shadows until she spots mercenaries forcing a massive beast into an iron cage. Before she can act, a loud horn echoes through the air. The feared Emperor Dragon arrives, accompanied by his troops, a monstrous war machine, and his deadly enforcer, Amnesia. It soon becomes clear that the mercenaries have been hunting rare creatures to supply the Emperor's brutal arena battles. Dragon inspects the cages with satisfaction, then turns his attention to the captured villagers. He orders their leader brought forward and recalls a moment from years ago when he was once a slave, and this very man showed him nothing but contempt. Dragon demands the missing half of a legendary book and declares his intention to enter the forbidden Hyrenian forest. The captive warns him that only those chosen by the gods may step into that land. Dragon scoffs at the idea, mocking faith and praising knowledge and reason instead. Enraged by the man's belief, he orders General Karlach to execute him without mercy. While this unfolds, Sonja moves deeper into the camp and discovers two mercenaries tormenting a helpless creature locked behind bars. She confronts them for their cruelty and swiftly ends their lives. As she tries to free the beast, a blade presses against her throat. Amnesia has found her. Sonja forces the weapon away, stepping back as Amnesia coldly claims that the forest days are numbered. Suddenly, a dark whisper overtakes Amnesia's mind, urging her to kill. She lunges at Sonja, and the two women clash in a fierce duel. Steel flashes as they trade blows, both displaying remarkable skill. Amnesia gains the upper hand and knocks Sonja's weapon aside, but Sonja counters by sweeping her legs and dragging her to the ground. Onlookers gather, amused by the savage spectacle. Sonja manages to lock Amnesia in a chokehold, drawing cheers from the crowd, who see it as nothing more than entertainment. The moment breaks when Sonja's horse charges toward her, drawing her attention away. Seizing the chance, Karlach strikes her from behind, knocking her unconscious. When Sonja awakens, she finds herself bound inside the invader's tent, stretched against a wooden frame. Dragon questions her, but she refuses to speak. Karlach answers her silence with pain, pressing a blade into her old wounds. When Dragon takes her map, Sonja snaps, tearing one hand free and grabbing him in rage. Amnesia steps in, sword raised, forcing Sonja to retreat. Dragon orders her spared. He wants Sonja alive for his gladiator games. As darkness claims her again, Sonja relives the nightmare of her past. She sees her village burning, hears her mother's voice telling her to flee into the forest with the children. Young Sonja runs desperately through the chaos, trying to save others, but enemies surround her. Helpless, she watches her mother fall. Sonja awakens once more, now locked inside a cage with other captives. The prisoners are hauled toward the capital. Along the way, she is forced to watch soldiers beating her horse. Rage erupts within her. She attacks her captors, overpowering them long enough to break free. Using her chains, she traps the man wielding the whip and nearly ends his life. But reinforcements arrive. Overwhelmed, Sonja is thrown back into the cage, her strength fading as darkness takes her once again. Sometime later, Sonja slowly regains consciousness and freezes in shock when she sees her mother standing before her. For a brief, painful moment, hope flickers, until reality sets in. The vision fades, revealing not her mother, but a frail old woman, panicked and confused. Sonja lunges forward, gripping the woman's throat and pressing a blade to her skin, trying to use her as protection. The other captives quickly explain where she is. This pit is a place of no mercy, where lives mean nothing and escape is a fantasy. Killing the old woman would change nothing. No one would even notice. A guard captain steps in, pries the knife from Sonja's hand, and warns her to stay calm unless she wants to feel the lash. Elsewhere, Maester Ruthless questions Dragon's fixation on the Hyrcanian forest. Dragon reveals that when King Anzus wiped out the Hyrcanians, the few survivors fled into the woods, taking with them half of an ancient book of secrets. Dragon possesses the other half, which has already fueled his greatest inventions. Still, it is incomplete. Hidden within the text is a coded message, one only Dragon has managed to unravel, foretelling that a child who holds all knowledge will one day rule the world. Convinced the prophecy speaks of him, Dragon is desperate to learn how the story ends. As night falls, Sonja refuses to accept her fate. Again and again, she tries to scale the walls of the pit. The other slaves mock her efforts, claiming no one has ever reached the top. But Sonja proves them wrong. Inch by inch, she climbs until her hands grip the edge, and she pulls herself out, only to find herself surrounded by armed guards. She fights back fiercely, knocking several down, and even sending one plunging into the pit below. Still, their numbers overwhelm her, and she is captured once more. Later, Sonja wakes up chained to her bed. Fellow captives explain the only path to freedom: survive and win every fight in the arena. They tell her that Anya herself was once a slave who earned her release through blood and victory. Yet whispers follow Anya, rumors that the voices in her head belong to the spirits of those she has slain. Within the castle, Anya realizes her medicine is nearly gone. She hurriedly hides the empty vials when Dragon enters. She reminds him of his promise to cure her condition. He assures her he will, but only once she is stable enough to stand beside him, handing her a fresh bottle. He watches as she drinks it all at once. After he leaves, Anya stares into the mirror, disturbed by shapes and faces that seem to stare back at her. The next morning, training for the games begins. Sonja meets Asen, a fighter known as the Untouched. Undefeated and unscarred since his capture, he challenges Sonja, daring her to be the first to land a blade on him, and claiming himself as her prize if she succeeds. Petra warns Sonja not to grow close to anyone, as friendships in the arena often end in forced combat. When the games begin, chaos erupts. Slaves rush the blacksmith, desperate for weapons. As a newcomer, Sonja is given only a wooden sword, a flimsy shield, and humiliatingly poor armor. The arena roars with excitement, hungry for blood. Sonja and Petra are sent into the sands together. Sonja refuses to kill an innocent woman for the crowd's amusement, and instead demands a fight with the Emperor himself. Dragon laughs and casually signals his guards. Arrows fly, striking Petra. Sonja rushes to her side, holding her as she dies, whispering an apology. Enraged, Sonja seizes Petra's sword as soldiers flood the arena. She attacks without hesitation, slicing through the first man's legs before taking his dagger, her preferred weapon. With speed and precision, she targets weak points, cutting down one soldier after another. Within moments, every attacker lies defeated. The crowd erupts in celebration, stunned by her ferocity. Even Dragon watches with newfound interest. As Sonja leaves the arena, she bends down and quietly takes Petra's necklace, carrying the memory of her fallen friend with her. Later that night in the pit, Sonja quietly hands Petra's necklace to Hawk, the man who loved her. Grief hangs heavy in the air. Asen raises a simple toast to honor all the slaves who lost their lives that day. Moved by the moment, Sonja begins to sing an old hymn from her tribe, a song once used to remember the fallen. To her surprise, Dex recognizes the melody and joins in, his voice blending with hers in shared sorrow. The following day, Maester Ruthless presents Dragon with a strange device known as the Yoke. Using crackling energy, he fastens it onto the head of a captured forest beast. When Dragon activates it with a control, the creature goes berserk, completely stripped of its will. Pleased with the result, Dragon demands more. He wants the device to dominate humans as well. Ruthless admits he has already tested it on slaves, but none survived. Dragon believes the missing half of the ancient book holds the key to perfecting the invention and dreams of creating an army of controlled humans. Ruthless then unveils another marvel, a blazing orb that now fuels the entire city. He assures Dragon that soon this power can be reshaped into devastating weapons. Back in the pit, Dex asks Sonja how she knows the sacred song, noting that she doesn't appear to be from Hyrcania. Realization dawns on him, and he reveals that a small group of her people still lives hidden deep within the forest. Overcome with emotion, Sonja breaks down in tears and insists they must escape and find them. Before they can say more, the pit captain arrives, ordering Sonja to the palace. She is once again forced into the humiliating armor and locked inside a cage, which is dragged through the city to the Grand Hall where Dragon is hosting a lavish feast. There, Dragon displays a massive map of a continent. proudly pointing out the lands his armies have already conquered. He declares that Sonja's forest will be the next to fall. Dragon then shows her the ancient book. The sight of it sparks a painful memory. Her tribe once used the other half in sacred ceremonies. That night, Sonja dreams of those rituals, hearing her mother's voice urging her to protect the book at all costs. In the dream, Dragon slays her mother and takes it. Sonja jolts awake, her heart racing, filled with resolve. This time, she swears the dream will not become reality. Later, the arena turns into a battlefield once again. This time, the slaves are thrown against armed mercenaries riding powerful warhorses. Outmatched in strength and weapons, the captives quickly realize they must rely on teamwork. Instead of striking the riders directly, they target the horses, bringing them crashing down and sending the mercenaries flying into the dirt. As the chaos unfolds, the captain searches for more slaves to throw into the fight. Sonja protests when she is ignored, only to be told that Dragon has ordered her kept out of combat. He wants her alive and forced to watch others die. Anger burning inside her, Sonja asks Asen to look after Dex. Then she confronts the blacksmith, demanding proper weapons. He refuses at first, until Sonja threatens him and proves she remembers his name, something no one else has done in years. Shaken, the blacksmith finally gives in. Ignoring orders, Sonja steps into the arena on her own. Two mounted mercenaries charge toward her, but before they can strike, Den intervenes, ordering his guards to shoot them down. Sonja lashes out at him, furious that he robbed her of the fight. Den coldly replies that he doesn't care about her battles. He wants answers. If Sonja refuses to reveal where the last of the Hyrcanians are hiding, every slave will be executed. To prove his threat, all the remaining slaves are dragged into the arena. Dragon raises a control device, and the ground splits open, revealing a massive cyclops. A yoke is fastened to the back of its neck. With another command, Dragon sends the creature into a frenzy. Panic erupts. Slaves scatter in all directions, but the cyclops charges through them, knocking several into the depths below. Hawk bravely attacks, but is swatted aside without effort. Asen follows, striking hard, only to be hurled over the edge. Horror spreads through the arena. Sonja notices the device embedded in the monster's neck. Gathering her courage, she leaps onto its back, clinging to its flesh as she drives her blades in to keep her grip. The cyclops thrashes wildly, but Sonja refuses to let go. With a final surge of strength, she rips the yoke free. The creature suddenly calms, lowering itself and sending Sonja tumbling to the ground. It raises its massive fist and slams it down beside her, shaking the earth. Sonja pleads with the beast, telling it the truth, that she is not its enemy. The real enemy sits on the throne. With a thunderous roar, the Cyclops charges toward the stands, smashing through the structure with its horns. The crowd scatters in terror. Parts of the arena collapse, crushing several spectators. Dragon narrowly escapes and is pulled away by Karlach. Back on the arena floor, the slaves mourn Asen's apparent death until he suddenly reappears, climbing back up and declaring that he remains undefeated. Seizing the moment, Sonja points toward a tunnel formed by the Cyclops' destruction and urges everyone to flee. She promises to meet them later at the Whitechapel, as their long-awaited chance at freedom finally appears. After the chaos settles, Sonja slips back into the palace under cover of darkness. One by one, she confronts the guards, cutting them down as she demands to know where her horse is being kept. Only the last man, trembling and wounded, finally speaks. With her answer, Sonja sprints toward Crudless' laboratory. Inside, panic erupts as workers flee at the sight of her. Sonja moves through the room, taking in the twisted experiments and the blazing energy sphere that powers the city. At the far end, she finds her horse trapped in a cage. She frees it without hesitation, then turns back toward the heart of the lab. With a powerful throw, she drives a sword straight into the glowing orb. For a brief moment, the palace lights flicker. Then everything explodes. The blast tears through the laboratory and sends shockwaves into the Great Hall, shattering windows and throwing people to the ground. Dragon survives the destruction, battered but alive. Crudless is not so fortunate. Shards of glass slice into his throat, killing him instantly. As Dragon mourns the loss of his closest ally, Anya coldly informs him that scouts are already hunting Sonja. By morning, Sonja reunites with her companions, and together they begin their journey away from the city. Along the road, Asen stops and announces that he must part ways. He reveals the truth. He is a prince, and Dragon captured him during an attack on his homeland. Now he intends to return and rebuild what was taken from him. Sonja leans close as if to kiss him, but instead slices his arm with her blade, smiling as she finally marks the one once called untouched. Later, the group makes camp to tend to their wounds. Sonja and Dex speak excitedly about the future, sharing memories of their childhood and dreaming of reuniting with their people. Their moment is interrupted when a slave returns from scouting, dragging a captured enemy behind her. She explains that the rest of the patrol is dead. Under questioning, the scout reveals that Dragon and his forces are following closely, only a day behind. Without hesitation, Sonja kills the man. She then pulls Dex aside and urges him to leave immediately to find her people. She confesses that she has already exposed their location to Dragon and cannot risk leading him to the forest. Dex leaves, heartbroken but understanding. Sonja tries to convince the others to go as well, but they refuse to abandon her to face the enemy alone. Elsewhere, Dragon learns that one of his settlements has been reduced to ashes by Sonja's allies. With his army still days away, his rage spirals out of control. Anya mocks his weakness, and their argument erupts until Sonja suddenly appears nearby. She tosses the severed head of a soldier onto the ground, warning that more destruction will follow if Dragon continues sending scouts. In response, Karlach throws down Dex's head in cruel retaliation. That night, Sonja spots figures approaching her group's camp. She raises her bow, ready to fire, when a man steps forward and announces who they are, the Lost Hyrcanians. Overcome with emotion, Sonja runs to them and embraces her people, including Hesper, a woman from her village she never thought she would see again. They tell her they encountered Dex, but lack the numbers to fight the soldiers and save him. These survivors also carry the other half of the ancient book and finally explain how it was lost. On the day of the massacre, a young boy hid inside the temple and watched as a priest tried to protect the book. A soldier attacked, and in the struggle, the book was torn in two. Hesper struck the soldier from behind, killing him and escaping with one half. Forced to flee, she couldn't recover the other. The boy picked it up and hid it before being captured by the invaders. At last, the truth is revealed, and with it, the final piece of a destiny that can no longer be avoided. Long ago, inside a grim slave cell, the frightened boy who had survived the massacre discovered the torn pages of the ancient book. As he studied its symbols and knowledge, he unlocked its secrets. That forbidden wisdom gave him the power to break his chains, rise above his captors, and eventually become the man the world would fear as Emperor Dragon. Now, the remaining Hyrcanians argue that the only way to survive is to disappear once again, hiding the book deep within the forest. Sonja refuses to accept that fate. She reminds them that Dragon will never stop hunting them as long as he lives. Running will only delay the inevitable. Instead, she urges them to stand their ground and end the war once and for all. Reluctantly, the group agrees. Not long after, they take positions around the settlement, only to discover that Dragon's army has already arrived. His forces are armed with devastating new weapons. Cannons roar to life, tearing through the land as explosions rip across the forest, setting trees ablaze. Sonja and her allies are forced to retreat as fire spreads in every direction. As his soldiers march into the burning woods, Dragon turns to Anya and promises her a crown if she delivers Sonja's head. Deep within the forest, Sonja's group melts into the shadows, hiding behind trees and beneath thick undergrowth. When the enemy draws close, they strike. An ambush erupts into a savage battle, with flames and explosions surrounding both sides. Warriors fall rapidly, the forest echoing with steel and screams. When Sonja's people begin to gain control, she orders them to retreat, luring the enemy farther into the wilderness. Several soldiers chase after her, forcing Sonja to face them alone. She cuts them down or evades their attacks one by one until Anya appears. The two women clash, blades ringing through the smoke-filled air. At first, they seem evenly matched, but Anya eventually gains the upper hand, carving several wounds into Sonja. Bleeding and exhausted, Sonja refuses to fall. She counters with a fierce strike, slashing Anya across the neck. Elsewhere, Hawk encounters General Karlach. The two face each other without interference, trading brutal blows, fists, headbutts, and raw fury. The fight ends when Karlach swings his axe and drives a sword into Hawk, leaving him mortally wounded. At the same moment, Anya plunges her blade into Sonja. As she raises her sword to finish the kill, Sonja's horse charges in, slamming into Anya and knocking her aside. The loyal animal collapses beside Sonja, shielding her, summoning the last of her strength. Sonja pulls herself onto its back and rides away from the battlefield, disappearing into the burning forest as the war rages on behind her. Sometime later, Sonja reaches the quiet lake once more. As she stares toward the stone statue, she believes she sees her mother standing beside it. But this time, it is no illusion. The figure before her is the true forest goddess. She speaks gently, saying the land itself is wounded and that Dragon must not be allowed to triumph. Sonja, weary and bitter, answers that she prayed all her life and received nothing in return. The goddess explains that the prayers were never meant to summon miracles. Sonja first had to discover her own strength and accept the path laid before her. With that, the goddess lowers Sonja into the lake. The waters glow, closing her wounds and restoring her spirit. As Sonja rises, the goddess tells her that the fate of the world now rests in her hands. Elsewhere, the remaining members of Sonja's group have been captured. When Hesper speaks to Dragon, she calls him by his old Hyrcanian name. Enraged, he strikes her and shouts that the frightened boy she once knew no longer exists. He accuses her of abandoning him, gripping her until she finally breaks and admits it. Searching her belongings, Dragon discovers the missing half of the ancient book. To him, this is proof that the prophecy was real all along. He orders the mercenary commander to execute her, but the man refuses to harm a priestess. Furious, Dragon draws his own blade, ready to kill Hesper himself. At that very moment, an arrow flies through the air and drops a guard. All eyes turn as Sonja steps forward, her hair now glowing with a deeper, fiery red. At the same time, Asen arrives, leading his army into the fray. As Dragon soldiers rush to defend their position, the prisoners seize the moment, breaking free and joining the fight. A former slave tackles Karlach, sinking his teeth into his neck and finally ending him, already weakened by losses from the previous night. Dragon's forces cannot withstand Asen's army and are pushed back. Though the main gate is sealed, Sonja simply scales the walls and reaches the tower, cutting down soldiers without hesitation. Those below try to stop her, but she rains arrows upon them before leaping down and overpowering them one after another with her newfound strength. Inside one of the buildings, Dragon reads the recovered half of the book. Instead of power and conquest, it speaks of healing, balance, and harmony with nature, things he dismisses as worthless. Broken and desperate, he falls to his knees and begs Anya to face Sonja for him. Anya refuses, terrified of someone who survived a wound that should have been fatal. Dragon mocks her, calling her weak and claiming the voices in her mind agree with him. When Anya demands to know how he can hear them, Dragon finally confesses that he planted those voices through false medicines, never intending to share his throne. Realizing the truth, Anya snaps. She drives her sword into Dragon, but in the same instant, he stabs her as well. They collapse together, mortally wounded. Outside, Sonja finishes off the last of the soldiers. When she enters the building, Dragon is already gone. With her final breath, Anya tells Sonja that the voices have finally fallen silent. In the forest beyond, a wounded dragon slips from his horse. Sonja follows a trail of blood and torn pages until she finds him at an ancient sacred site. He is ripping the book apart, claiming it has no value now that it can no longer be used as a weapon. Sonja calmly tells him the book was never meant to be a weapon. He turned it into one and became a tyrant, no different from King Anzus. She names his crimes, but also apologizes for not saving him when their village was destroyed. Dragon admits that he is afraid to die. Sonja takes his hand, staying with him until his final breath fades away. She later returns to the settlement with his body and tells her people to bury him as a Hyrcanian, for the lost boy he once was, not the man he became. Sonja chooses not to return to the forest with them. After a lifetime spent hiding among trees, she now wants to see the wider world. Months pass. Sonja is seen laughing in a lively tavern, dazzling everyone with her skill and confidence. Her moment of peace is interrupted when Asen arrives with troubling news. Her people need her once more. Without hesitation, Sonja rises and leaves with him, ready to answer the call of destiny again. And that brings us to the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this epic journey of courage, destiny, and sacrifice, don't forget to like the video, share it with fellow movie lovers, and subscribe to Starz Recapped for more powerful recaps just like this. Your support keeps the stories alive, so hit the bell icon and stay tuned for the next adventure. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.